female leopard shot down by a hunter. A small dog runs over to help her lick her wound. He watches as the hunter slowly approaches. The puppy tries to drag the mother away by her ears, but his small body can't drag her away. At that moment, the hunter appears and shouts to chase him away. He doesn't get far before he hears another gunshot. He hesitates but turns back. All he sees is the back of the hunter carrying the leopardess. He walks through the jungle. Lost. Suddenly a helicopter flies overhead. He chases it to a clearing and screams at it, but the helicopter doesn't even notice him. He turns out to be Dory, the heroic super animal star who is a household name. Yesterday he was out on a fishing trip with his owner when a storm hit. After the boat was capsized, Dory was washed up on this island by the waves. Dory was very disappointed to have missed out on this opportunity. Suddenly a faint barking sound attracts him. He follows the sound and finds 4 leopard cubs. He looks at the adorable cubs in front of him. Dory remembers the female leopard that was killed by a hunter. That must have been their mother. As Dory prepares to leave, Coco, the mischievous one, comes crawling out. He comes up to Dory and stares at her with his big, watery eyes. Dory had to take him back, but Coco crawled out again. Dory called out in anxiety, as if urging him to go back, but Coco just kept staring at him. At that moment, the hawk's call came, and the hawk hovering in the sky, and looking at Coco who was scared, Dory decides to stay and protect them. The little ones were looking for food on their own. Dory knew they must be hungry, so she picked some wild fruit, but the little ones are clearly not interested in the fruit. Dory reluctantly ducked her head. Suddenly a hare comes into view. Dory immediately goes after it. The rabbit and the dog start a game of chase through the jungle. Eventually, the hare was trapped in a rocky crevice. Shivering, Dory's heart is softened by this. He licked the hare's head and reassured him not to be afraid. Then he turned and left, but the little ones had food to eat. What to do? Then Dory follows the scent to a hunter's house. He looks at the roast on the shelf. He was about to do it under the cover of the woodpile. Suddenly the hunter opens the door and comes out. He immediately hid. The hunter soon enters the house with the roast in his hand. Seeing the roast gone, Dory looks up. He finds 2 chickens still hanging from the rope. He walks up to the woodpile. He bites them with his mouth and pulls them off. Then he rushes back to the house, but back he goes to find Coco gone. It turns out he's been naughty and gone up a tree again. He brings Coco back. Dory gave the chickens to the youngsters. He ate the wild fruit to feed himself. As night falls, the little ones have gone to sleep with a full stomach, but Dory is always on the alert. Early the next morning, Dory starts picking up rocks. It turns out there was a gap in the nest. The little ones could have crawled out through it, so Dory used a rock to plug it up so that he could go out and find food. He arrives at the hunter's door, seeing one of the remaining chickens. He plans to do the same thing again, but he didn't realize it was a trap. This puppy stole a pheasant from a hunter yesterday. He was going to take it back to feed his 4 leopard cubs. Today he was about to take another one when the hunter suddenly appeared and caught him. The hunter looked at the dog's tag to make sure it was Dory. The hunter was going to take him to get the bounty. Dory was tied up on a leash and the hunter went into the house. Dory tried to break free, but it was no use. He lies helplessly on the ground, unaware of the impending danger. A wolf is staring at him from behind. The wolf creeps closer. Suddenly Dory senses danger. He turns his head to see. The wolf is staring at him with its teeth bared. Dory immediately runs towards the house, but the rope restricts his movement. Luckily, the hunter opens the door and scares the wolf away. The hunter doesn't know what's happening. After making a fire and cooking dinner, he went back inside, but Dory knew the wolf hadn't gone far, so he started circling around the fire. When the wolf appeared, Dory quickly ducked. The wolf tripped over the rope. The sound of the rope also drew the hunter. When the wolf was spotted, the hunter grabbed his shotgun. The wolf ran off in a huff, looking at the mess on the ground. The hunter has to untie the rope around Dory's neck and put her aside. While the hunter was gathering his things, Dory jumps up and pulls down the grouse and runs away quickly. On the way back, Dory spots another female leopard. She runs wildly and barks at the female. He motions for her to come with him, but she doesn't understand a word she's saying. On instinct, she chases Dory away, but Dory doesn't give up. She dashes back. She picks up Coco and heads for the mother. If you won't come with me, I'll bring you the cub. But just as he reaches the mother, a helicopter suddenly appears in the sky. The mother takes her cub and runs away. Looking at the owner's figure in the helicopter, Dory is about to rush out, but then she stops. She turns to look at her poor little one. She turns and hides her body. In the end, he just watched the helicopter fly away. That day Dory is out for food and finds the female again, so she goes back, takes her cubs and follows her in the direction of the mother leopard. Every few steps she takes, she looks back to see if the cubs are following her. Suddenly he notices that one is missing. He goes back and looks. It's Coco playing with the frog. Dory woofed a few times and told them to come on. Soon it's nighttime. They had to stop for a while to rest. At dawn Dory spotted the mother leopard. Just as she was about to return to take the cubs, suddenly the wolves blocked her path. Dory runs for her life. She leads the wolf in a circle around the mountain. Eventually she manages to evade the wolves, but on the way back she encounters another bear. Dory has to take the little ones into the grass, but Coco ran up to the bear and provoked him. The bear barked and scared Coco into their hiding place. The bear was coming towards them. In the nick of time, Dory rushes out and barks at the bear. He managed to get the bear's attention. Dory took the bear and ran away, but the bear can't outrun Dory. In a flash, Dory is nowhere to be seen. The bear can only play with the wood in anger. As he prepares to go back, Dory is surprised to run into the wolf again. This is the smartest dog I have ever seen. On the road he came across a wolf. He darted under the crotch of a brown bear, and when the bear senses it's coming back, it sees the wolf coming after it. And that's how Dory manages to get away. He arrives at the river and sees the mother leopard drinking. He rushes back to bring his cubs, but the cubs seem a bit scared of the water, so Dory encourages them. Eventually, with Dory's encouragement, the cubs make it across the river. At that moment she hears her owner calling her name urgently. He wanted to dash over to her, but then he looks over at the 4 poor little ones. He gave up. At that moment, the eagle circling in the sky suddenly came down. The little ones scramble for cover, but one is still taken. Dory rushes to find the rest of the little ones. Then the eagle came back. Dory shouts and chases it away, although he was a little sad, but the important thing is to find the mother leopard. In front of a rock, Dory sniffs out the mother's trail, so she leaves the cubs here for now. She then goes ahead to chase the mother. Finally, she catches up with her a short distance ahead. Dory keeps coming forward to provoke the female into coming with her, but on the way back, Dory accidentally walks through the grass. There's an abyss below. He can only cling to the rock face for dear life. With each step up the wall, debris continues to fall, but he doesn't give up. He finally climbs up with all his strength. Back on the rock, he lies a little lost. Suddenly, he looks up at the rock face. He has an idea. He runs out quickly and furiously, seeing the mother still resting there. He runs up high and starts to survey the terrain. Then he runs to a fork in the road. Through the junction above, he reaches the top of the hill. He can just see the rock where the cubs are staying, so he goes back to the fork and blocks the other one with a branch. Then he runs on, ready to go back for the little ones. But to his surprise, the wolf was watching the little ones. Dory went around to the back to attract the wolf's attention. The little ones took the opportunity to get under a rock. The hungry wolf is left to fend for himself. Enraged, the wolves start to attack Dory. Dory runs wildly and leads the wolf to the top of the hill. Then she slowly dives into the grass. The wolf leaps and falls off the cliff. After this twist and turn, Dory fears that the leopardess has gone too far again. He must hurry to save time. He picks up the cub and prepares to climb up the rock face. Dory struggles up the wall. The other 2 cubs try to follow her, but they are too small to climb up. On the other side, the mother rests and prepares to move with her cubs. She comes to the fork in the road and looks at the branches that are blocking the path. In the end, she chooses to head up the hill. Dory finally gets the cub to the top of the hill after a lot of effort, but he doesn't take a moment to rest. He immediately goes down and prepares to take the second one, despite the difficulty of each step. But he keeps going, and when it's time to take the third, he slips and falls. He looks down and knows he can't give up. Finally, the third one comes up. Dory collapses to the ground, exhausted. At this point, the female leopard arrives at the top of the hill. Dory gets up immediately. The dog and the leopard look at each other from a distance. Looking at the 3 cubs, she seems to understand Dory's intentions. She slowly walks over to the cubs. Then she lies down on her side. The cubs are finally able to enjoy their long overdue mother's love. Dory slowly walks off into the distance. She has finally done her job. Before she leaves, she looks back for a few moments. Finally, the helicopter comes from afar. He can finally go home. This is a great movie. There are no special effects in the whole film.